The bustling streets of India, Adventist schools helping children prepare for a better future, and how pioneer missionaries of the past have helped shape mission work today on the Indian subcontinent. All that and much more coming up next on Mission 360. Hello and welcome to Mission 360. I'm Gary Krause. If you've ever visited India, you'll probably never forget the sights, the sounds and the smells of the streets, with the sense of aromatic foods, the sights of colorful dresses and the noise of honking horns. And if you've never visited India, stay tuned and in a few moments we'll visit there. According to tradition, the first Christian missionary to the Indian subcontinent was the Apostle Thomas. Seventh-day Adventist missionaries arrived there, of course, much later. I'm sure we'll learn more about early Adventist mission in India when we talk with Dr. David Trim, the Director of Archives, Statistics and Research for the Seventh-day Adventist Church. But first, Ricky Oliveras, a video producer for Adventist Mission, recently visited India for the first time. Let's watch one of the videos he made from that visit, called Mission in Motion.
In 1898, William Spicer left his home and journeyed overseas to the country of India. For 3 years, Spicer was the only ordained Seventh-day Adventist pastor in all of Southern Asia. Southern Asia represents a large territory with more than 1 billion people. Just like our modern-day missionaries do, William Spicer had to adapt to a whole new culture. He tasted new food, stumbled through foreign languages, and surrounded himself with an unfamiliar environment. Despite the great challenges, William Spicer did a lot to establish the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Southern Asia. He founded the first Adventist periodical in India. If you visit India today, you can stop by the Oriental Watchman Publishing House. At this publishing house, they produce thousands of books and magazines every day. Workers feed paper through the machines, knowing that when the process is complete, they will have materials containing a valuable message. Jagdish Nami has worked here for years. He lost some of his fingers in an accident a long time ago. Although working like this can be difficult, Jagdish Nami doesn't let that stop him. He works here because he knows the impact these books have on the people who read them. All of the employees have a passion for their job and sharing the good news of Jesus. William Spicer continued to work throughout India as a church leader. He went on to become the General Conference Secretary and then President. His mark was left behind throughout Southern Asia.
And together, we'll make it, we'll complete, we will become His workers.
Education is an important aspect of the Seventh-day Adventist Church in India. Adventist education often plants a seed in the children who attend the schools. Many students who attend these schools are not from Christian homes. They hear Bible stories for the first time and want to learn more. Students of all ages are inspired by the stories of Bible characters and how God worked in their lives. Most Adventist schools in India are full because of their good reputation. They hold a high standard of learning. Both Adventist parents and parents from the community are happy to send their children to these schools that range from primary school all the way through college. Spicer Memorial College was established almost 100 years ago. Named after William Spicer, it is a well-respected institute in India. Through the years, the college has gone through a series of progressions to make it what it is today. The beautiful campus offers students a high-standards learning environment. A large church building features services and programs every week. Students come from all over the world to attend Spicer College. These students go on to be pastors, teachers, principals, and find jobs in a variety of other fields throughout the Southern Asia region. The Southern Asia region of the world is made up of only 4 countries. These countries include Bhutan, India, the Maldives, and Nepal. More than 90% of the population are Hindu and Muslim. This is one of the fastest growing regions in the world. In cities, you will have to fight your way through overwhelming crowds. Although there are only 4 countries in this region, it boasts a population of 1.2 billion people. Of the 1.2 billion, there are about 1.6 million Seventh-day Adventists. That means that about 1 of every 750 people you meet might be an Adventist. There is still a lot of work to be done.
Dr. Trim, thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm glad to be with you.
And our topic is the mission history of the Southern Asian region of the world.
Yes.
Where does it start?
Well, first, I think it's probably helpful to clarify what we mean.
Oh, that's a good idea. Why didn't I think of that?
Southern Asia is sort of a shorthand term for what was a big British colony of India. But the big British colony of India now represents 3 separate countries: the modern country of India, but also Pakistan and Bangladesh. And originally, the church's Southern Asia division included all of those, but also Sri Lanka and Burma, or Myanmar as it's also called. But in effect, when we talk about Southern Asia, we tend to mean India. And in fact, since then, Pakistan, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh have been now moved to other world divisions, and the Southern Asia division basically is mostly India, but also has Nepal. But I'm just going to talk about the history of the church in India,
Yes.
because when the first missionaries went there, these were all British territories. They were all British colonies and really part of the one big empire.
Before you move on, David, India actually has a special part in your life, right?
Yes, I was born in Mumbai, Bombay as it was called then, and I still tend to think of it that way. I am a Bombay Walla, as Indians would say. I'm from Bombay, in the state of Maharashtra, and I'm very proud of that.
Good, excellent. Sorry to interrupt. Continue.
No, so the first missionaries actually arrived in 1893. A man called William Lenker and another man called A.T. Stroop. We're actually not sure of his name because we don't know much about him. Lenker and Stroop were Americans. They were literature evangelists. And you know, if we look at the history of our church around the world, a common theme is that the work is opened up by colporteurs, by literature evangelists. And they arrive in Madras, or Chennai as it's known today, in 1893 and start selling books, though they're English language books. But this is the virtue of the fact that it's a British colony. The elite, or even quite a number of the sort of the more middle class, have all been educated in English and read English, so you can sell English language books.
Now, did these people pay their own way to go to India?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
They took ship. They basically sailed all around the world and stopped at various places, got out and spent a while there selling literature.
Wow.
And this was actually a standard. This is how the Advent message went around the world. In 1894, you get 3 more literature evangelists, and again, we don't know all the details precisely because people did pay their own way. They weren't official missionaries sent by the church. But one of them was an Australian, Captain Masters. He had served in the British Army and then retired. His wife may have been from New Zealand, but they get converted in Australia, and they go as literature evangelists to the city of Hyderabad. In 1895, you get the first church worker. And interestingly, she's a woman. A woman called Georgia Burris. She later marries and is Georgia Burgess.
American?
American, yes, and a Bible instructor, as they were then called. And she arrived in Calcutta on January 23, 1895. She is the first Adventist church worker in India.
That's great.
She's followed up some months later in November 1895 by a name that will be known to some of your viewers, probably a famous name in Adventist history, though increasingly forgotten today, Dorris A. Robinson. Robinson was another American, but he had been a missionary to Britain, and he gets called from Britain to India. And he is the first Adventist, the first ordained Adventist minister in India. But 3 years later, he's followed up by another man, W.A. Spicer, William Spicer, who's one of, I think, my personal Adventist hero because of his commitment to mission. Again, an American, been a missionary to England and gets called from England to India. He arrives there in 1898, and one of the first things he does is to found a publishing house and a journal called the Oriental Watchman. And some of your viewers may know our publishing house in India is still called the Oriental Watchman Publishing House. And it's an important step because while the Oriental Watchman is published in English, increasingly the publishing house starts to publish in the many very different languages of India. And so immediately you're starting to broaden the groups of people whom you can reach. Now, India at the time had many diseases that were unknown to Western science, and so to go as a missionary to India meant literally taking your life in your hands. And Doris A. Robinson died in 1899, still serving there in India. And if you look, the Seventh-day Adventist yearbook, if you look through it, up until around the 1960s, they would publish what they called a necrology, which is just a listing of all the church workers who died in the previous year and the date of their death. And you regularly find a high proportion of them were in the countries that today are India, Pakistan, Burma, or Bangladesh.
We often forget how many of these missionaries never came home.
Exactly, Gary. And I think we owe it to them. We owe it to remember their memories and their sacrifice. And the other thing, of course, is when they go, they know they may be going for formidably long periods of time. Now, Spicer actually only stayed 5 years, a mere 5 years, before he was called back to become a church leader in the United States. But many people stayed as missionaries in India for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, and the standard term of service was actually 10. You got to have a leave of absence in home, a furlough as it was called, after 10 years. But imagine the separation that you are making from your family when you have to. The only way to get to this mission field is by ship. And either from Britain or from America or from Australia, where increasingly missionaries to India are drawn from. It's a long voyage, and so people just don't get to go home very often. And if they, as they do, send their children home to be educated, basically committing to be a missionary means not seeing your family, maybe not seeing your children grow up, and possibly giving your life. Who is there today who would be willing to make that kind of sacrifice?
That's a great question to finish with, David, and thank you for reminding us of that sacrifice. And if some of those missionaries were alive today and could see that the church has grown to more than 1 million people in India, they would not believe it.
Indeed, but we owe it to them.
Exactly. Thank you so much, David, for sharing that inspirational challenge.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Mission 360. My guest is Ricky Oliveras, who is a video producer with Adventist Mission, and many of the videos that we see on this program show the handiwork of Ricky. Ricky, I'm glad that you could join us today.
Thanks for having me.
Recently you returned from the majestic, beautiful, crowded, busy, puzzling country of India. What was that like? Your first visit, was it what you expected?
Well, it was exactly what you just described and more.
Okay.
Yeah, the cities were crowded. I had to kind of fight my way through to make it through the crowds. The country was beautiful. I just saw, I went from north to south, east to west. I saw just the beautiful country of India.
Now, what were you doing?
I was filming stories. There's so much happening in India with the church. And so I was filming stories about global mission pioneers, about church plants, about people who have come to know Jesus and the Adventist message. And so it was really cool to see everything that was happening there.
Now, you went to the city of Mumbai. Tell me about Mumbai.
Oh, Mumbai is overwhelming. I landed and we got out of the plane. We started driving in the city, and all you hear in the car is beep, beep, beep. That's all you hear wherever you're going is crowded streets. And like I said, when you're walking, you have to fight your way through the crowds. It's just overwhelming.
Now, the Southern Asia region of the church has chosen Mumbai, formerly known as Bombay, as a special focus for ministry, because it's such a big city. Yeah. What are they planning? What are they doing?
Well, I know that from what I heard, because I was only there for a very short amount of time, they're really doing a lot of work in the smaller neighborhoods, because there's tons of people living there. I walk down the street, and people are living in small tents on the side of the road. And so the church is targeting to reach these people who are in the city And, there are so many needs at this level. People need food, people need water, people need, clean clothes. And so the church is really working to provide these basic needs for the people, and also talk about Jesus, find a way to introduce Jesus into the discussion. Because, when you meet the people's needs at that level, it really opens the door to be able to talk about why are we doing this. And it was just cool to see, because you can see, I saw people being very responsive to this, even in the short amount of time that I was there. So.
Now, you mentioned earlier Global Mission Pioneers,
Yes.
and these are church planters. Tell me about what you saw.
Well, I met quite a few Global Mission Pioneers while I was there. It was pretty amazing to see the amount of willing church planters that are there, and they need it because India is a country with, a low percentage of Christians. And so I met a few different Global Mission Pioneers, but one that stands out in my mind, his name was Pathriam. And I met him, and first thing when I met him, he said, "Can I tell you my story?" And I said, "Yeah, of course. That's what I'm here for." And so I was happy to listen. And so he was there with his wife. And Pathriam, he told me about how he used to drink a lot of alcohol. He used to do terrible things. He used to mistreat his family and neglect his family. And I thought, wow, he doesn't seem like that he's that way anymore. And he told me a little bit about how, since he did all of those things, his family was very sad about this. And one day, his wife was sitting on the front porch of their house in their village, and a woman was walking by and noticed, and she thought, well, let me go see if I can comfort her. I wonder what's wrong. So she walked up to Pathram's wife and said, well, do you want to come over to my house? We can talk about whatever's happening. So Pathram's wife thought, why not? I'll go over. I have nothing to lose. My life is already in shambles at this point. So she went over, and she met the woman's husband, and they started talking. And so the family asked if they could pray with Pathram's wife. And so she said, okay. And they asked if they could read something from the Bible. And she said, okay, why not? And at that point, she went home, and she kept coming back week after week to this family's house. Pathram was still drinking. He was still, being himself, doing terrible things. And eventually, Pathram's wife, she went back for a Bible study, and they gave her a Bible of her own. She took the Bible home, and she was happy to have the Bible, but she looked at the Bible and thought, this is great, but I don't know how to read. What am I going to do?
Minor technicality.
Yeah, a small technicality. She was willing. She would flip through the pages. And so Pathram came stumbling in one day. He was a drunk. And she asked him, Pathram, can you read this to me? Because he could read. And he said, no, I'm not interested in religion. I'm not interested in any of that. And she kept asking. And, deep down inside, he had a soft spot for his wife. And so he finally agreed. Plus, he might have been bothered by her asking so many times. But so he agreed, and so he started reading. And so he read a text, and that turned into a chapter, and that turned into a book. And he was just captivated by what he was reading. And his mind started clearing, and he thought, I want to read this more. So Pathram's wife invited him to the Bible study, the weekly Bible study at the family's house. And over time, he learned about Jesus, and he and his wife accepted Jesus into their hearts, and they decided to be baptized. And so now they wanted to take it one step further, and now they're both Global Mission Pioneers.
Oh, wow.
And so it was cool to see how, God turned their life around from being a really dark place to where it is today. And they're eager to tell people about Jesus. And I followed them around, the village, and you could see how they wanted to just share with everybody how God has changed their life.
So you put the story onto video?
So the story's on video.
Good. I look forward to seeing that.
Yeah, that's a teaser, maybe a little bit more than a teaser, but anybody can check that out.
Excellent. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Ricky, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Gary.
Viewers at home, please pray for Global Mission Pioneers in India and all around the world as they're planting churches for the glory of God. Let's continue our visit to the Southern Asia region of the world.
This region of the world is home to some fascinating places. In earlier days, when the British colonized India, they would sail across the ocean to reach Southern Asia. They would arrive in Mumbai, formerly known as Bombay. The first structure visitors arriving by boat would see is the Gateway of India. The structure stands 85 feet tall on the edge of the Arabian Sea. It is a monument built to honor British royalty. Visitors travel here to see the impressive monument and explore the other sites along the coast. Many visitors to India will also stop to see the Taj Mahal. This World Heritage Site attracts millions of tourists each year. If you can make it through the crowds, you can walk right into the buildings and learn the history behind these structures. The Taj is made out of white marble. It was built by a Mughal emperor in memory of his third wife. This tall structure is an impressive sight to see. Despite all the amazing things to see in India, it is still a difficult place for the Adventist Church to reach. There is a great need for Jesus in this part of the world. So many people have never opened a Bible and have never heard the name of Jesus before. One way the Seventh-day Adventist Church is spreading the gospel to the people of Southern Asia is through Global Mission. Global Mission is focused on starting new Adventist congregations in some of the most challenging places on earth. Global Mission pioneers are on the front lines of this work. They plant churches among groups who have never heard the gospel. There are many people who have come to know Jesus directly because of the work of our Global Mission pioneers. Pathram is one of the many Global Mission pioneers working throughout India. Pathram was not always working for God. He used to drink heavily. He would do terrible things and did not care for his family. One day a neighbor saw Pathram's wife, Jashoda, crying in front of their house. She invited Jashoda to her home where she could go and pray with the family. Jashoda went week after week to pray and study with the Christian family. The family eventually gave her a Bible of her own. She was so happy, but there was only one problem. She couldn't read. The only solution was to bring the Bible home and have her husband read it to her. At first, Pathram resisted, but he eventually agreed. The more he read from the Bible, the better he felt. His heart was being changed. Jashoda invited her husband to join her next Bible study. The more he studied, the more he felt convicted to change his life. He gave up alcohol and made his family a priority. Although he still faced temptations, Pathram was convicted that God's way is the right way. He and his family were baptized. He wanted to do more to serve God, so he became a Global Mission pioneer. Now Pathram and Jashoda go into the community together to share the gospel message. They can't imagine doing anything else with their lives. They love spreading this message with everyone they encounter. Their life is filled with joy and they have a happy marriage. The family reads their Bible and prays together because this is what is most important to them. We can support Global Mission pioneers through our prayers and other resources. As you can see, people in the Southern Asia region of the world are busy spreading the gospel in many ways. They face some of the hardest mission challenges in the world today, but it doesn't stop them from doing the work that God has called each one of us to do. Please pray for the work in Southern Asia. Pray that they can teach millions of people about the gospel so we can see Jesus return soon.
Global Mission pioneers are doing a tremendous work, sharing hope in Jesus in India and many, many other countries around the world. I'm always so inspired by the dedication of these tireless workers for God. We ask you to join us in praying for the people of India and all those who are sharing the gospel there. And also please pray for Adventist schools that are helping provide many children with new opportunities through Christian education. Before we go, we'd like to share this music video. As Christians, we have a message of hope, a message that God loves us no matter what. And that's the message we share, that God loves you. He loves me, just as I am. Until next time, I'm Gary Krause for Mission 360.
Just as I am, without one plea, but thou thy blood was was shed for me, and thou thy bids me come to thee, O Lamb of God, I come. I'm not the heart strong, my